Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with Codominance by CurlyStar09, and today's chapters are 31 and 32. Chapter 31, Location. It was early morning when Bakugou woke up with a groan. His alarm was blaring, and within a couple of seconds, Akio was whimpering from his crib. Bakugou let out a sigh as he sat up in bed, Kirishima stirring beside him. He leaned over, kissing his partner's temple before turning to turn off the alarm. Akio's whimpers turned into small cries as he stood up and headed towards the crib. "Hey, Gremlin," Bakugou said in a soft voice, reaching to pick Akio up. "Sorry for the wake-up call. We need to head out early today." He placed a kiss on Akio's cheek, the small boy still hiccuping slightly as he rubbed his eyes. "I agree with Akio," Kirishima's muffled voice said. "What do I have to do for 5 more minutes?" "Love," Bakugou started, his tone a bit of a warning. "You know we need to take Akio with us today." Kirishima sat up then, letting out a sigh as he ran a hand through his messy bed hair. "I know, lots to do." Bakugou walked back to the bed, sitting beside Kirishima before handing over Akio, who went more than happily, to Kirishima, but still buried his face in Kirishima's shoulder as if he was trying to fall asleep once more. "We got this," Bakugou assured him, but also trying to convince himself of what he was saying. Kirishima leaned over until their lips met in a lingering kiss. "I know. Now, let's get this show on the road." Kirishima stood up with Akio, and Bakugou followed after. They had left all of Akio's things packed the night before, so they just had to focus on getting ready. Bakugou took a shower, and halfway through, Kirishima handed him Akio so that he could get a quick wash as well. Once they were out, Kirishima took his turn. After getting ready in record time, with just a bit of trouble when it came to picking out what to dress Akio in, it was starting to get colder with each passing day as September was coming to an end. "I'm taking the extra jacket just in case," Bakugou declared as he went to stuff it into one of their bags. "All I'm saying is that it's not that cold yet," Kirishima called out as he followed while holding Akio in his arms. "Not everyone is a walking space heater," Bakugou grumbled. "Not everyone gets cold easily either," Kirishima retorted, but only grinned when Bakugou turned to glare at him. "I don't want him getting sick," Bakugou mumbled as he grabbed one of the bags. "I know," Kirishima said, stepping closer to his partner. Bakugou hesitated for a moment. "Your birthday's coming up." Kirishima tilted his head to the side. "Oh, guess you're right. Haven't even realized." Bakugou let out a slight hum, a scowl forming on his face. "Talk to me, Belasti," Kirishima said, a hand cupping Bakugou's face. "I want all of this to be over by then. I want to." "You can't promise that," Kirishima cut him off. "Not if we have to do this right. Let's focus on what we have to do now. Everything else can wait." Bakugou nodded into Kirishima's hand, knowing that his partner was right. "Let's get going, Red," Bakugou said, instead of what he really wanted to say, that he would make sure their family was complete by his partner's birthday, that he would make sure it would be a day that Kirishima would never forget, and the 4 of them happy together. Time passes. They arrived at Dynamite's agency about a half an hour later, all eyes on them as soon as they walked into the building, all because of Akio, who everyone wanted to greet and gush over. "Aren't all of you supposed to be working?" Bakugou huffed as he tried to push past yet another person that came to say hello to Akio. "Akio is a celebrity. What do you expect?" Kirishima chuckled. "For people to actually do their jobs," Bakugou grumbled as he led the way to the conference room. "There's my favorite boy," Ashido exclaimed as soon as she saw him, rushing over and taking Akio in her arms. "How are you, my precious little ray of sun?" Akio giggled as Ashido spun him around. "Not a high for either of us," Kirishima said to Bakugou as he tried not to laugh. Just make sure she doesn't squish him to death, Bakugou said as they followed Ashido into the conference room. Hey, Sarah greeted from his spot next to Midoriya and Todoroki. We got some good news. Kirishima felt tense at the words. What's going on? Izuku cracked the code, Todoroki answered. We already know that part, Icy Hot, Bakugou said with an eye roll. But they went around to look at the computer Midoriya was hyper-focused on. They are coordinates, Midoriya spoke up. We have the coordinates of every single hideout, hospital, and location where they have conducted every single experiment. It was a code within a code. We know where Katsumi is? Kirishima said just above a whisper. Narrowed it down to 3 possible locations. We have a list of 8 or so, still decoding some of it, Midoriya confirmed, still not looking at them. Bakugou pushed forward. How fast can we raid them? We still need to make sure that they are in use, Saro explained. Endeavor is already trying to find heroes that have patrols in those areas, so less suspicion if they are looking around. Bakugou nodded. Kirishima turned to look at Ashido, who was holding Akio. She was looking at him, a cautious smile on her face. Uraraka and I are about to head out. Turns out one of your patrol routes is near one of the locations. In the next hour or so, the whole team started readjusting their map, labeled with the closest patrols that they knew that went by or close enough to one of the locations, marking which heroes would look at them, and which of those they could trust with this. The notes also included the fact that some of the locations had been abandoned, but Bakugou wanted to make sure every single one was checked for signs of activity. He wanted to know if even a mouse entered one of those buildings. This is becoming bigger, Fat Gum said nervously. He was looking over the map while holding Akio as the baby slept. There are going to be a lot more questions about what we have going on, especially if we have to get more heroes involved. That's where Endeavor comes in, Bakugou explained. He will have to figure out something, and fast. I will go over these today, Uraraka said, pointing at 2 locations on the map. They are near my regular patrol and won't raise any flags. You shouldn't go on your own, Midoriya told her. It's too risky. None of you are near that route, Uraraka pointed out. I can just get this out of the way and just... There is someone we know who has a similar route, Shinso said, looking at one of the schedules. You work with them enough that it will seem like a regular routine. Who is it? Uraraka asked. Ida, Kirishima said, reaching over Shinso's shoulder. Uraraka froze. Ida? Bakugou couldn't help the grin that spread on his face. Well, that settles it. I'll call Ida and fill him in as much as I can. Uraraka glared at Bakugou, her face turning red. If this wasn't for Katsumi, I would have punched you already. As if you could land it, Bakugou snorted as he dialed Ida's number already. So that's still going on, Ashido chuckled as Uraraka glared at her. Let's figure out a route for the others now then, Saro said, changing the subject before his girlfriend could start teasing Uraraka about her crush. That leaves 7 places to check out. Time passes. Mina, Saro said as he caught up to her in the hallway. Ashido turned to look at him with a soft smile and a teasing tone. Miss me already, Hanta? Saro chuckled. You know I always do, he said, wrapping an arm around her, pulling her a bit closer. Promise me you'll be careful out there. You've been doing this a lot lately, he said as he placed a hand on her now pale skin. She was wearing makeup again, her skin no longer pink, and contacts that made her golden eyes brown. He would never get used to this, especially when she had a black wig styled to hide her horns. I promise, she said without hesitation. You too, okay? You're not going to be keeping an eye on me today? I'll be fine, Saro assured her. I'm going with Shinso. You're going to be on your own. I'm just going to walk by a couple of places and come right back, Ashido reminded him. Saro nodded. He was just nervous. Everything was moving a lot faster than they expected, which meant that they would be taking more risks. I'll let you know when I get back, okay? Ashido told him, pulling him down with a hand on the back of his neck until their lips met. Saro nodded again. You know how to reach me if you need backup. Always do, Ashido smiled before pulling away and starting to walk away. I want my sexy girlfriend back, by the way, pink hair and all, Sarah called out to her with a grin. That's what I like to hear, Ashido responded with a wave as she tried not to laugh. Sarah watched her walk away with a smile before turning back to meet up with Shinso once more. They had to get started on their own patrol after all. Time passes. I'm heading out, Bakugou told Kirishima as he finished adjusting part of his hero costume, gauntlets on the floor by the entrance of his office. All right, Kirishima said with a nod. I'll head back to my agency once you're back, go on patrol from there. Akio's still asleep? Bakugou asked, turning to look over at the makeshift bed they had made for their son. It was safer to keep him close to them at that moment, but that didn't come without its own set of problems. There were a lot of questions about why they had brought him to the office, and even more about who was going to be keeping an eye on him. Kirishima would stay back, working on reports while Akio slept. Once Bakugou got back, they would switch. It was just the way things had to be for now, and probably for a couple more days as well, until they knew for sure that they didn't have to worry about where Akio was and who was close to him. I'll see you when you get back, sweetheart, Kirishima told Bakugou, a hand on the small of his partner's back. Bakugou kissed Kirishima's cheek. I'll see you then. Kirishima pulled him down towards him a bit more and kissed his partner's lips. Go get him, Dynamite. Bakugou gave him a grin. You know I will. Bakugou pulled away, mentally preparing himself for the patrol ahead. It wasn't a long one, but it did go around the area of some of the places they were trying to check out. He was taking one of the newer sidekicks with him, using the excuse of showing the kid the area in order to be able to divert from the usual path a bit. This was a sidekick that he hadn't had much time to work with yet. He had some type of water-based quirk. He couldn't remember if it was water evaporation or just simple water control. When he saw the kid with what looked like a fishbowl backpack, he knew it had to be the latter. All right, Bakugou said, not even stopping to greet the sidekick, who hurried to match his step. We're going to be doing this fast, but we are doing this well. This will be your area from now on, mostly with another sidekick. I usually take a longer route, but this will be a way for you to get to know the area. Bakugou continued, making sure to go over the protocol with the sidekick, who was nodding along with a nervous look in his eyes. Any questions? Bakugou asked once he was done, as they walked down the street. No, sir, the sidekick said as he tried his best to keep up with Dynamite's fast pace. Bakugou nodded. You gotta be familiar with the places you patrol. The people will get to know you and they will trust you. It's important for them to feel safe and for you to know when something is off. Just gotta remember that you can't get too comfortable. Always on alert. The rookie nodded, making a bit of a show of looking around. Bakugou swallowed down a groan. This would have been so much easier alone. The building was just a couple miles away, but soon enough he will be able to get some of the information that they needed. Time passes. By the end of the day, they had eliminated a lot of the locations. There were no reports or suspicious activities in those areas, as well as their patrols found no signs of anyone coming or going recently. The group had also grown. So, you're telling me that there is another child being held by the villains? Ida asked, moving his arm in a way he did when he talked. Yes, and thanks to Uravity and you, we are closer to finding the villains and our child, Bakugou said as he marked off another location. As soon as we're done with this, we will need your help and anyone else we can get in order to raid these hideouts. I'll fill you in some more later, Uraraka whispered to Ida. Over dinner? Ashido mumbled, lifting her water bottle to her lips to hide a smirk. Uraraka blushed, shoving lightly at Ashido, who was next to her. Bakugou rolled his eyes, noticing how Ida hadn't caught any of that exchange. The sooner we can narrow this down, the sooner we can move. What did Endeavor say about all this? Bakugou said as he looked at Todoroki. Just that he's still working on it, Todoroki said with a frustrated sigh. Kirishima and Fat are on patrol, which means that we can expect some more areas to be marked off, Shinso chimed in. The fact that all of this is so spread out Do you think this is how they were able to get DNA from so many heroes? Sero asked as he rubbed his neck nervously. That's one way to do it, Midoriya mumbled. Go through usual patrol routes, maybe cause a confrontation of some kind. We know they had access to many hospitals and such. Then again, there are types of DNA that would be better for this type of experiment. What could help us figure out how they did this, but it won't help us find them any faster unless these locations we crossed off are how they got their samples, and then we can shut the fuck up already, you damn nerd. Bakugou huffed. We are already focusing on locations, and that's it for now. All the other questions and theories can wait. I can't believe you used this type of language in front of Akio. Sero gaped, looking over at Akio, who was sitting in his playpen Kirishima had gotten him for the office. Bakugou blinked a couple of times before groaning. Any of you tell Eijirou and I will kill you before he can lecture me. You shouldn't be using that type of language around an infant, whether his other parent finds out or not, Bakugou. Ida started with a lecture. Bakugou just ignored him. He had years of practice doing that. He looked at the map. He could feel just how close they were, how maybe, just maybe, they would have their family all together by Kirishima's birthday. Time passes. The room was quiet except for some whimpers in the corner. The baby girl in the almost empty crib had been crying for a while, but then no one came. It slowly turned into whimpers. Someone walked up to her now, a woman that gave her a bit of a worried look as she picked her up. The warehouse was getting colder with the weather, and no one dared risk buying the baby any clothing for fear of raising suspicion. They had her laying on an old blanket that was so discolored the original color was unrecognizable. Her only clothing was a thin, white one-piece that was stained and dirty. I'm so sorry for being late today, the woman whispered against the baby's hair, trying to soothe her. She took out a bottle of formula that was already cold. I thought someone else would. I should have known better. The woman started to feed the blonde baby, who drank desperately. Probably hadn't had anything to eat since the day before, right before the woman had headed home. You can't keep living like this, she whispered, looking around to make sure no one overheard her. There had to be a way for her to alert someone about this. Anyone. The baby just looked up at her, red eyes still filled with tears. They didn't care about her. They were just using her after all. But she was just a child, an infant. The woman shook her head, trying to keep herself from crying. Maybe she could reach out to the heroes somehow. Red Riot or Dynamite. They had taken the other one and taken him in. Surely they would take this one as well. The woman took a shaky breath, not sure why she had agreed to be part of any of this. The money had gotten her off the streets, but she still never expected the children she had given birth to would be treated so badly. They weren't her children, she knew that. But she had been told she was a surrogate for a family that couldn't have children on their own. By the time she realized the truth, it was too late. She was an accomplice, and they already had too much information on her for her to run away. They told her she could watch the children if she wanted to, and she did because she knew they would not survive without someone that actually cared about their well-being. Being a soldier requires training, but a child is very different. She cursed herself for running that day when the lab got raided. She grabbed the baby girl and ran, expecting Kazuko to be right behind her with the boy. Maybe if she stayed, if she had waited, both of the babies would have been saved that day. Not a day went by since then that she didn't think of what if. Even if she had been arrested, at least the child wouldn't be spending most of her days alone in a cold room. She was shocked to see how the heroes had taken the boy, naming him Akio, and presented him to the world as their own. The woman looked around her, a long-forgotten office in the back of a warehouse. No windows or any way to get out that wasn't the guarded exit on the side of the building. She had to do something. But she knew Miyahira worked for the Hero Commission of all places. She had to find a way to alert someone. Anyone. The baby girl fell asleep in her arms, cuddling so close to the woman's chest as if seeking the warmth radiating from her. Her blonde hair was in disarray, and her face was a bit red and stained with tears from hours of crying. The woman let out a shaky breath. She had to do something, and as soon as possible, even if it cost her her life. Chapter 32. The Woman on the Street. 5. They had narrowed it down to 5 locations that were still possibly active. Everything else had been long abandoned. Those 5 warehouses, they didn't have enough information on them to know if they were still being used or not. Kirishima stared at the map, trying to find some connection, pattern, or clue that may give them the final part of the puzzle. Endeavor had started to help them get a team of heroes together in the background for another raid, but they couldn't do much until they knew where to attack for sure. Even then, they didn't know if it would be possible to recruit anyone. More importantly, they had to know where Katsumi was first. Without that information, they could end up hurting her, or the villains could take her away once more, next time making it impossible to find her. "Hey," Bakugou said as he placed a hand on Kirishima's arms. Kirishima hadn't even noticed him walking into the office. "Hey, sweetheart." "Sero and Mina are leaving for patrol right now," Bakugou told him. "They're going to be around these areas." Bakugou pointed at a location towards the middle of the map, near a couple of locations. "Are they familiar with the area?" Kirishima asked. "Very. That's their route during their patrol dates or whatever they call them," Bakugou said with an eye roll. "Hopefully they don't get distracted by one another." "They know what they're doing." Kirishima smiled, leaning into his partner a bit more. Bakugou just let out a grumble that wasn't quite agreeing or disagreeing, but he leaned towards Kirishima as well. They fell silent for a couple of seconds. Kirishima hesitated, but nervously asked what had been eating him up. "Do you think we are making as much progress as we can?" Bakugou pulled away slightly, letting out a sigh. "I wish I could tell you that we are doing everything in our power and turning every fucking rock, but we are limited in every fucking possible way right now. We are doing what we can, and we are for damn sure not going to fucking stop." Kirishima's eyes dropped to the floor, nodding slowly. He knew that was going to be the answer. He knew before he even asked. He just had to get it out of his head before it bounced around, tearing him apart, telling him that he wasn't doing enough, that he should be doing more, so much more that he just couldn't do. "We're getting close," Bakugou told Kirishima as he took his hand in his. "Just missing some pieces that I'm sure we're going to find." Time passes. Sarah was on the top of a building looking over the street. It was a rather quiet day, which meant they could have more time to look around the area. The weather was nice, which meant fewer people rushing and a lot easier to keep track of who was coming and going. They were a good distance away from the areas they had to keep an eye on, but he wanted to make sure they could canvass as much of the area as possible. It was harder to see everything at street level, after all. "Anything?" Ashido asked through his earpiece. "Nothing, but it's expected if they have been under the radar for so long," Sero told her with a bit of a sigh, his eyes finding her on the opposite side of the street below. "Let's continue walking, babe. Maybe we can find something when we get closer to the next one," Ashido encouraged. "Okay, then let's head east, Misiello," Sero told her as he made his way to the edge of the building. "Please don't do that thing again," Ashido groaned as Sero stepped onto the ledge. "Do what thing?" Sero said with a devilish grin. "That thing that gives me a heart attack every time you do it," Ashido huffed. "There's something called stairs, you know." "Don't worry, you know I always catch myself," Sero chuckled as he looked down at the street below. He was 10 stories high. "Sero Hanta, if you don't want to sleep on the couch tonight, you are going to stop right now." Ashido cut herself off with a gasp as Sero let himself free fall from the building. Sero shot out his tape to a nearby building, swinging his way to the ground and landing a couple of feet away from his girlfriend with a smirk. I hate you so much sometimes, Ashido groaned as she punched Sero's arm. Sero just wrapped his arm around her, pulling her towards him for a hug. Why does that scare you so much? Because I know you're an idiot, Ashido mumbled against his chest. One day I know you're going to try to be funny doing that and forget to swing yourself to safety, you dumbass. Ouch, you've been hanging out too much with Bakugou. Sero let out a laugh. Ashido laughed and Sero felt her relax against him. You're still sleeping on the couch, she joked. Darn, Sero said with a fake pout, knowing it was mostly an empty threat. Mostly. Let's just get going, she told him as she pulled away, but she grabbed his hand to pull him along with her.
The rest of the patrol seemed normal. Nothing out of the ordinary for such a quiet day, but keeping an eye open for any suspicious activity or any clue that could help narrow down their search. Everyone was growing more restless with this plan. They were almost done with their patrol when a lady collapsed across the street from them. Ashido wasted no time, rushing over before Sero had even noticed what happened. Are you all right, ma'am? Ashido asked as she helped the woman sit up. The lady had short brown hair, eyes closed as she leaned heavily against Ashido. Had she fainted? Maybe they should take her to a nearby hospital. Sero started scanning the area, making sure no one had intentionally hurt the woman, and trying to find somewhere they could take her to rest. Sero was about to call it in, thinking if he should also request an ambulance when he saw it. The lady took Ashido's hand in her own and gave her a piece of paper that Ashido read, her eyes narrowing. The lady sat up, pulling herself closer to Ashido's ear and whispering something Sero wasn't able to overhear. He saw the way his girlfriend's face hardened. Something was wrong. Cellophane, she started, turning to look at him. I think she just needs some rest. We should take her to the agency with us, and we can assess the situation better once we get there. That wasn't the protocol, but the look that Ashido gave him told him to go along with it, at least for now. Let me help you, Sero said with a nod as he leaned down and picked up the woman. Are you all right, ma'am? Is this all right? The woman didn't respond, but did seem to try to hide her face from view. They weren't too far from the agency, but they were still a couple blocks away. Ashido told a couple of bystanders that they were taking care of the situation before leading the way. The woman was leaning heavily against Sero, but he could feel her shaking. Was she scared? They got to the agency a couple of minutes after, and Ashido ushered Sero towards the closest private room. Sero went in, setting the woman down on a chair. What's going on, Mina? Sero asked in a worried whisper. Ashido didn't say anything. She just showed Sero the piece of paper that the lady had given her earlier. Please help me. I need to talk to Dynamite and Red Riot. It's about their child. Time passes. Bakugou rushed down to the first floor of his agency with Kirishima right behind him, heart beating in his throat. What the hell is going on? He said as he walked into the room Ashido had told him to meet them at. His eyes fell on the woman sitting in the corner of the room who was nervously fidgeting. She turned to look at him and seemed to freeze. Her eyes went from him to Kirishima and back, but she didn't move a muscle. Bakugou, Ashido said, voice firm as she handed him the piece of paper. Bakugou read it, eyes going wide, before turning and showing Kirishima. Who are you? Kirishima said, eyes narrowing at the woman. I can't tell you that, she said in a small voice. I'm just trying to do the right thing. I really am. Bakugou frowned at her words. What information do you have on our son? The woman shook her head. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. It's not about him. It's not. She covered her mouth with her hand as if she were trying to stop herself from saying anything else. I'm so sorry. Bakugou turned to look at Kirishima with wide eyes. Could it be this woman? She knew? Kirishima rushed forward towards the woman. We need to know what's going on in order to help you. She nodded, but she was visibly shaking as she reached into her pocket, taking out another piece of paper. A picture, Bakugou realized, as she extended it to them. Her eyes on the ground, Kirishima took the picture, letting out a gasp as his eyes filled with tears. Bakugou hurried over to his partner's side, and his eyes went wide at what he saw. The picture was of a baby girl with spiky blonde hair and big teary red eyes. Their daughter, their Katsumi. Bakugou took the picture from Kirishima, unable to hide just how overwhelmed he was.
What? How did you get this? Where did you get this?
The woman looked at them, hesitating as she looked around the room. Is this place secure? She whispered. Bakugou nodded.
It's my agency. I make sure of it.
The woman looked at him. It was clear that she was still nervous about talking, as if not sure if she should even be there. I take care of her. The confession came out all at once as she shifted in her seat. She needs help. They aren't taking care of her. She's getting sick. They leave her in a room all day by herself. The woman stops talking, looking at them, as if making sure that they believe her. She can't stay there. She won't make it.
You know where she is?
Kirishima asked, voice quiet but determined. The woman nodded before repeating, She needs help.
Why are you coming to us?
Bakugou asked, the cautious part of him wondering if this was a setup, some type of trap in order to send them on a wild goose chase, making them waste time and not being able to get to Katsumi in time. She needs help, the woman repeated, her eyes tearing up. You helped the boy. You need to help her too. She can't stay in that place.
Where is she?
Kirishima asked as he took a step towards the woman, but when he tried to place a reassuring hand on her shoulder, she shuddered before pulling away. I can tell you. The woman started. But you need to move fast. If they find out I'm here. She shook her head as more tears started to spill. They don't care what happens to her. They don't. It's okay. We'll help her, Ashido said, stepping forward and putting a hand on the woman's own. The woman didn't pull away. If anything, she leaned towards Ashido a bit more. Can you tell us where she is? She's alone, the woman said with so much heartbreak in her voice. She's always alone, unless I'm there. Bakugou felt his hands turning to fists. What were those fuckers doing with his daughter?
Do you have a location for us?
Bakugou asked, already planning on running out of the door as soon as he had a location. The woman nodded. Please, help her, the woman pleaded. We will, Kirishima reassured. She's our daughter, after all. That seemed to get her attention, her eyes meeting Bakugou's for the first time. You need to move quickly, she told him. If they find out I came here, I don't even want to think about what they will do to her. Time passes. Katsumi was in one of the warehouses that they had marked off on their map. It made Bakugou feel at least a bit better knowing that they had been on the right path, that they had been heading the right way. The woman refused to tell them her name or even anything about herself. Each time they tried to get information, she would shake her head and whisper, Please just help her. The warehouse that they were keeping Katsumi in was huge, the biggest one on the list they had. But they now knew that another of the warehouses was also being used by the villains. It was confirmed by the woman, who apparently knew quite a bit. So the plan started developing, but it would have to happen sooner rather than later. Bakugou ran a hand through his hair as he waited for the others to show up in the conference room. Even though his heart was hammering and every bone in his body was screaming, Fuck this shit, let's go get her ourselves, he knew he just needed to play this safe. He couldn't risk Katsumi like this, not his baby girl. Fuck, she looked so much like him. Just like Akio looked so much like Kirishima. Her eyes were just like Kirishima's, though. Do you think she will be scared of us? Kirishima asked suddenly. He was standing next to Bakugou, looking at the picture the woman had given them of Katsumi as proof.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Bakugou answered honestly.
She won't know who we are, after all. Just like Akio when he found him at first.
She's so beautiful, Kirishima said, voice full of awe as he looked at the picture of their daughter. Bakugou couldn't help but smile at that.
Of course she is. She's our baby girl.
He leaned against Kirishima, throat tight, as he looked at those sad red eyes. Their baby girl should be happy, just like their boy was. Kirishima was about to say something, but the door of the conference room opened as Deku rushed in with Todoroki right next to him. What happened? What's going on? Deku asked.
We have a lead,
Bakugou told him. Deku's eyes went wide as Todoroki's own seemed to narrow.
How reliable is this lead?
Todoroki asked. Kirishima let out a sigh as he turned the picture in his hand over for them to see. Todoroki's mouth dropped open as he looked between Bakugou and Kirishima. Deku gasped, a hand raising to cover his mouth. It seemed to be evidence enough for them as well. The others came in shortly after, all of them equally shocked by the picture of Katsumi. How are we doing this? Uraraka asked as she nervously paced the ceiling. No one pointed out what she was doing, knowing she only did this when she was nervous. Something about having more space than on the floor where the furniture was.
Maybe we should set up surveillance around those 2 warehouses. Make sure the information is good before we do anything, Ida offered.
We don't have time for that, Ashido told him. What if they find out we have someone helping us? They could run, or they could do something worse.
We have a big enough team here, Fat Gum told them. We could divide and conquer. Half of us take one warehouse and the rest take out the other.
We don't know how many people are in each of them. What if they get away again? What if they take Katsumi with them? Kirishima pointed out with a tight jaw. Bakugou reached out and touched his partner's hand, who took it in his own with a tight hold.
Whatever we decide, we need to do it now, Shinso told them. Maybe if we recruit more heroes. Wasn't Endeavor already working on that?
Wouldn't that be a problem on its own? How are we supposed to explain all of this?
I can contact Endeavor and see if he has anyone in mind already,
Todoroki offered, already reaching for his phone.
We could start with people that we trust, our old classmates and mentors, Shinso explained. You are going to need to leave Akio with someone you trust, especially during the raid,
Shinso said as he looked at Kirishima and Bakugou. Not only that, but we need to make sure we have a solid plan before we even think of moving, Uraraka huffed as she sat on the ceiling, apparently done pacing. If we want to get this done, we may have to do this tonight, tomorrow morning at the latest. We don't know what schedule this woman had. They could notice she's missing sooner rather than later. Ochako is right, Ashido chimed in. We don't know how long it would take for them to realize she talked to us, let alone for them to know that something is up. Bakugou was quiet, listening to everyone trying to come up with a plan, but all of it seemed risky. Every single idea that was offered had too much room for error, too many ways that it could go wrong, too many ways that Katsumi could end up hurt by the villains or by them. Slowly, an idea started to creep into his head, and it could be their only option.
We need a distraction,
Bakugou finally spoke, making all eyes turn to him.
We make a big show of taking down the warehouse that Katsumi isn't at. Then a smaller team goes and gets Katsumi as quietly as possible. The villains will be so focused on the chaos, thinking we only know about the one of their hideouts, that by the time they realize we know everything,
he trailed off.
Hopefully by the time they realize we know about both locations, Katsumi will be safe and sound with us.
Everyone was silent after Bakugou offered the plan. We really are going to need more people then, Bakugou declared, already taking out his phone. Time passes. They couldn't waste time, so the goal was that very night, sometime close to midnight. The first team would start storming the warehouse, making a big show of it, a distraction that would hopefully be enough for a select few to go and rescue Katsumi. It seemed like a very simple plan, but Kirishima couldn't help but worry about every single thing that could go wrong.
Aizawa offered to take care of Akio tonight,
Bakugou said as he walked up to Kirishima. That's good, Kirishima said with a sigh. At least they would know Akio was safe.
Mike agreed to join the operation. He will help with the distraction team, which is going to be helpful,
Bakugou said, but the way he went quiet right after made it obvious he had more to say. Kirishima turned to look at his partner a bit more head-on. What's going on, Katz? Bakugou hesitated, opening his mouth and closing it with a thoughtful frown. Talk to me, Katsuki.
I think we need to split up,
Bakugou said, eyes on the floor. Kirishima froze at Bakugou's words. What?
I think I should go with the first group. You need to go with the second,
Bakugou explained. Kirishima let out a short breath of pure relief, but then stopped short as he realized what Bakugou was actually saying. Wait, you're not... I thought we would go get Katsumi together, Kirishima said, a hint of panic in his voice as he reached for Bakugou, cupping his partner's face.
I know, but I would be more useful helping to create a distraction. If they don't see at least one of us there, they may know something is off, eh?
Bakugou explained, a shaky hand placed over Kirishima's own. I'll come with you then, Kirishima said, the determination clear in his voice.
Bakugou shook his head. You need to get Katsumi. Your quirk is perfect for protecting her if something goes wrong. I need you to go and get her for us. Let me know as soon as she is safe with you.
Kirishima nodded, leaning his head forward against Bakugou's.
Okay. As soon as you have her in your arms, you have to let me know.
Bakugou begged. I will, sweetheart, Kirishima promised, leaning forward to kiss Bakugou softly. I'll bring her home. You just promise me that you will be careful.
I promise, love,
Bakugou said before kissing Kirishima once, twice.
You and I against the world, right?
Kirishima chuckled, nodding his head even though he felt uneasy about being away from Bakugou during the whole operation. It was their only option, after all. All right, friends, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed chapters 31 and 32. We're really getting down to the end now, and they're, getting this raid going. And, I think we're going to find out in the next video if they are going to save Katsumi or not. So I hope you'll come back and join me for that next one so that you can find out too. See you next time.